What's up guys, Justin Greenell here with 65drums.com, and today I'm going to be hooking up some GoEdrum pads to my Roland module. If you've seen my other videos, you know I've made two reviews of GoEdrum drum sets. GoEdrum actually gave me the KE6 and the JE6, and I had to give them negative reviews because even though they were huge pads and just beautiful colors, like there's this wood grain and then there's also this sparkle red finish right here, even though they looked so amazing and really large sizes for what they were giving you, the module was not very good and I had a lot of problems with the cymbals. But people were wondering what would happen if I hooked up these pads to a Roland module. So that's what I did. I actually hooked it up to a Roland TD30 module, and I'm actually going to show you some footage a little bit farther in the video of me playing a drum set with all GoEdrum pads except for the kick drum. The reason is because I've actually tried to use this monster with my module, and even on the GoEdrum module that this thing was designed for, it is not good for double kick pedals. This monster has an 18-inch mesh drum head on it. It's huge and it looks really nice. It's so big and everything, the beater that hits closest to that sensor will get the majority of the triggering right. However, your left beater, since your left foot is weaker anyway, and the fact that the sensor is farther away from it, it misses some of the hits. The drum trigger doesn't recognize every time you hit it. So it's, for double kick, not the greatest for double kick. For single kick pedal, it works okay. But yeah, that's why I'm not doing that in that video. I'm using a Roland kick drum in the video. So here's that footage. So that's how these pads trigger. They do very well actually. I wouldn't use them as a snare though, because during fine snare work you can get some double triggers. I'm actually going to do a head-to-head comparison here. As you can see right there, I've got a Roland pad, and that's going to be like a snare off against this GoEdrum snare. So here's that. So as you can see, it triggers very, very well. I don't think it's quite as good as the Roland triggering, but it is pretty darn close for what you're paying for it. I'll actually leave the prices up on the screen for the different sizes of drums you can buy. And if you want to see what's inside one of these shells, I actually took off the top head right here. You've got two piezos here. You got one on the inner shell to get the rim click sounds, and then you also have an extra piezo that is sandwiched inside of two pieces of foam right here that senses when you hit the head right there. I think it's actually kind of cool that they have an extra mesh head on the back. It's a very thin 1-ply mesh head. If you wanted to buy one of these, or maybe buy like 3 or 4 of these as toms, if you're one of those guys that builds your own electronic drum set out of different parts from different companies, you could save a lot of money because these drum pads are very cheap for how big of a pad it is. The triggering is actually pretty good. I don't know if I could say it's as good as a Roland pad, but definitely doable for a tom, and you could even get away with it using it as your snare. But there are a couple of reasons why I wouldn't recommend buying one of these as your snare. The first one is the rims over here. Within 2 weeks, you'll be able to put your finger through this rim because these rims are just paper thin. The rim on my Roland snare, I've been using that for 2 or 3 years and the rim is still intact because it's really thick. So you'll have to replace the rim. Also, this drum head right here gets really loose very, very quickly. It happens more on your snare. If you play a ton every day, you might have to retune it once a day because this thing gets out of tune so fast that, yeah, it just becomes a pain to keep tuning it over and over again. So that's why I wouldn't really recommend buying this as a snare. If you're using it as a tom, then that's fine because you don't hit the toms as often. So you won't have to keep retuning them all the time. You could buy 4 of these really large pads as toms and then maybe buy a Roland or a Pintech snare so you get a really nice setup of pads. An odd thing about these pads is that even though this drum head right here is a 2-layer mesh head, you'd think it would feel exactly the same as a Roland Remo mesh head because they're both dual ply. But no, this feels a lot different. It has an interesting feel. It almost feels like a 1-ply. So it's got an interesting feel. It's a little more acoustic-y because we all know that these are too bouncy if you compare them to acoustic drum heads. But I've gotten so used to the bounciness, now that you go to something like this feels unnatural to me because it is not a really bouncy mesh snare head. But every drummer is going to have a different opinion on that because so many drummers do not like how bouncy the mesh heads are on Roland products. I know you're also thinking, what did I think of those cymbals? I like the hi-hats GoEdrum makes. Oh, they're all exactly the same cymbal. You could take off the ride and use it as a hi-hat, vice versa. It comes in contact when it opens and closes on your acoustic hi-hat stand. And I really like that because my VH11 is just a 1-piece. So when you close it, it just sits there. It doesn't come into contact with anything. And I just like 2-piece electronic hi-hats. And it's really not that expensive. But I don't like the cymbals themselves because if I take off the rubber from these things, you can see that the choke strip is on the front of this cymbal. Every company in America puts them on the back, that way that if your stick holds onto it for a split second too long, it doesn't activate the choke feature. This only has 1 input on the back for 1 chord. The GoEdrum module recognizes all 3 zones, but Roland, you need 2 chords for Roland cymbals. 1 chord just for the edge, and then 1 chord for the bow and the bell area. So when you hit this on the edge, it will just make a bell sound, and then of course the bell sound right here and the bow right here. The only reason I would actually recommend buying one of these is if you bought this in a package with the hi-hat controller, and you can use this, and if it breaks one day, you can always replace the top cymbal because the GoEdrum hi-hat controller will work with like any cymbal. Overall, these pads are much better than I thought they were. These aren't perfect pads at all, but if you want a really large pad like this for not much money, I just recommend buying these as toms and then get yourself maybe a snare from Pintech or Roland or whoever. Maybe an old Heart Dynamics pad. Go search eBay. There are tons of great snares out there. The only reason why I don't recommend this as a snare is because I don't think the accuracy is quite on par. But the real reason is you'd get tired of retightening this all the time because the snare is the 1 pad you hit the most, maybe other than your hi-hat or your ride cymbal. Thanks for watching. If you like electronic drums, I make a new eDrum video every single Sunday, so be sure to subscribe to see more of those. And also follow me on Facebook, 65 Drums. I post drum covers on there, drum memes, all kinds of great stuff. I will see you guys next week.